I was writing about the movies for the Boston Globe. That was my job. And I had an editor there named Robert Taylor. And Bob Taylor was a great editor. I mean, he would take my reviews and it was like watching somebody do Rubik's Cube. He would just he'd take a word out, he'd move a paragraph around, he'd cut a sentence in half, and all of a sudden, like within 2 minutes, it'd go from like a C- to a B+. Mm-hmm. And now at that time in my life, I'd never been to a horse race in my life. I didn't think horses should be considered athletes because they were horses, and it was silly that they couldn't put it in a hoop, and they can't hit a ball, and they can't do anything that regular athletes do. So why do we think that they're athletes? So I poo-pooed the whole idea. But Bob Taylor called me one day. He said, I'm going to the racetrack with a guy who's a friend of mine, who's the foreign correspondent for Time magazine. And we're going to Suffolk Downs. And I'd never been to Suffolk Downs, but if he told me wherever he wanted to go, I was going to go because I was going to learn something. And so I went and I fell in love with it. Mostly I fell in love with the drinking and the gambling. And then when I found out that it wasn't like a casino, you were betting against the other people, I kept looking around and I go, wow, that person's a degenerate gambler. And this person's had too much to drink. And this person looks like a drug addict. If you really pay attention and read their past performances, I thought, you could really beat this game. Of course, I found out subsequently I was totally incorrect. However, I did fall in love with the gambling part of it first. And I really liked handicapping races. I loved reading the racing form, et cetera. And then a few years later, I got really, we had a basketball team at the Boston Globe. We used to play at noon times. And half of those people were in that movie Spotlight. They were played by actors in Spotlight. It was half of that. It was all those guys that were played in that Oscar-winning movie. But anyway, so eventually we all got injured, and we couldn't play basketball anymore. And so we got together and we bought a horse.
Oh wow!
Just a claiming horse, and I apprenticed myself out to a trainer at Suffolk that was going to train the horse and get him ready for the race and everything. And I thought, well, that's the one thing I'm missing in my handicapping is I didn't know about horses. So I get up at 5:30. I'd be at the track at 6:30. I'd work until 8:30, and then I'd take the subway to the Globe and change my clothes. It was like Clark Kent,
Yes.
And it was like I had this secret identity that nobody knew about. And then I'd go about my business.
Wow.
Well, so I was doing stalls and walking hots. And at first, the only thing I knew about the horses, I was terrified of them because they were big and they were smarter than me. And, I was just afraid of them, but eventually I didn't. And eventually I fell in love with them, which is a huge mistake. Because once you fall in love with anything, your life's going to change. When they say for better or for worse, you don't even know what that means when they say it. But now I know what it means because that's what it was. It was like for better or for worse. And I fell in love with the horses. And as time went on, I also realized that a lot of these horses that were done racing, especially at a place like Suffolk and Rockham in New England at the fairs and things, when they couldn't earn any money anymore, they were vulnerable.
Yes.
So they used to say at Suffolk that and some of the other places that they would tell me that, I'd say, what happened to that horse? They, they found a really good home for him at a riding academy in Maine. I said, wow, there must be a lot of riding academies in Maine, but I've never been to one of them. I've never seen one of them. And then it finally occurred to me, slowly over time, that's really not where they were going.
Yes. Yeah.
So there was a slaughter truck that would show up on a weekly basis and just load these horses up. And I thought, this is terrible. How can you have a sport where, these horses do everything?
Right.
I mean, think of it this way. We got the Kentucky Derby coming up in a couple months here. Actually, a month and a half now. And what happens if the gates open on Derby Day and a bunch of short people walk out? Like nobody's going to watch. Nobody's going to bet on it. I mean, it's ridiculous. The horses do everything for us, and the least we could do is provide a soft landing for them. So that was always in the back of my mind. And I did a story for the Globe for a wonderful Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation program that involves prisoners and prisoner rehabilitation, working with the horses. And I did a story about a horse named Saratoga Episode that the trainer I worked for had, and he was trained by Nick Zito when it was good. And when Saratoga Episode's career came to an end, I convinced Carlos to let him go to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, and he did. So they sent him down here to Lexington, Kentucky, and Saratoga Episode took up residence in the prison. And I only wrote 2 really good leads my entire career in journalism, and this was one of them. I said something like, the best day of Saratoga Episode's life was the day he stepped into prison. And it was really true, because they took good care of him. It was the greatest time for him.
Wow.
And I realized what great work the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation was doing with these horses. So when it came time to, when my career came to an end at the Globe, my wife Diane White, who was a really, really good columnist, she was the first one to take the buyout, and I was the 4th one. And at the same time, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation asked me if I would be their operations director. So I did that. So I came down to Kentucky, and I ran that program for a year and a half. And it was too much of a desk job, and I was retired, and I was really getting a little antsy about sitting in a chair and doing a desk job. Although I really loved the way they did all of their work, and the way they had retired so many horses. They had so many different ways that they took care of them. And I really admire them. I also thought in the back of my mind that there was another way to go about this. And one of the things that none of the other organizations were doing was taking stallions. And I realized from covering the movies how people are around celebrities. And a lot of these stallions are celebrities. And I thought, you know what? I'll just do what the horse park does, which is, they have their Hall of Champions over there. It's really cool. Cigar was over there. When I first came to Kentucky, they had Bold Forbes was over there. I mean, they've just retired all these great horses and done a great job, and they drew a lot of tourists. And I said, well, supposing we tried that on a larger scale. And so that's what happened. So in 2003, we started Old Friends, and with a couple of horses here and there. And now we have, I don't know, a lot. We have a lot. 300, I guess, something close to 300.
And when you say Old Friends like that, Michael, Old Friends is the organization. And, there's so much that goes into that, though. Can you explain a little bit more about, the organization itself and so forth, and how it operates? Yes.
That's a very good question. As I said, I like the drinking and the gambling. They gave us this really prestigious award at the University of Louisville that's named after John Galbraith, who owned a lot of good horses, including one of the first horses we retired named Sunshine Forever. And it's for business acumen. And I said, when I got up to give my little acceptance speech, I said, you people have made a terrible mistake. I had no business, no acumen, none of that. I said, it's all drinking and gambling. And they thought I was joking because that's the way it is. So let's go to the name. Now, first of all, I'd never had an original idea. All my ideas, but I know where to steal really good ideas. And if you have a really good idea, no matter how bad you are at it, eventually it'll work. So the name Old Friends came from a wonderful book that Barbara Livingston, the award-winning equine photographer, did. She wrote a book called Old Friends, Visits with My Favorite Thoroughbreds. And she'd gone around with her camera, and she's also a spectacularly good writer, and wrote this book called Old Friends, and it had all pictures in there of fabulous old retired horses. And I said, this is it. So I called Barbara up and asked her if it was okay if I called it my idea Old Friends. And she gave our permission. I called Eclipse Press. They gave permission. So I stole that idea. Now it drives her nuts, I think, because now they think she named her book after our farm. I'm glad to take credit too, where it's not due. She wrote with such passion, and her photographs speak for themselves. And the sense you got from that book is she really understood the value of these racehorses long after they'd finished racing and breeding careers. And I thought, this is the essence of what I'm trying to do. So I stole her name. I called her and asked her if I could steal the name, and she said yes. And I called Eclipse Press, who published the book, and they gave us permission. And now some people think that her books are named after the farm, but it's exactly the opposite. And I'd like to make that clear to everybody who listens to your podcast that no, we stole that. We did that. In fact,
Good
I
steal.
don't have original ideas, but I do know which really good ideas to steal.
It was a good one.
And so, that's really how the name came about. And then I didn't quite know what to do after that. So I said to my wife, I said, well, we have to go to Kentucky. And as I mentioned, Diane was a very successful columnist for many years at the Boston Globe. And we lived near Harvard Square. And I said, I want to go to Kentucky and live in a town we'd never been to before. But we'd retired. Our parents were dead. Our son lives in Australia.
Wow.
So I said, let's try it. If we don't like it, we can just come back after a year or something. Try it. So she thought about it for a while and she says, okay, I'll go with you, but only under one condition. I said, okay, what's that? And she goes, okay, that when I leave you, you won't come looking for me. But she's still here.
That's so funny. That's
She's
cute.
still here every day.
Aw.
And that was, so let's see, that was in 2001. So,
You're a good team. That's
you
great.
know, it's been great, but I keep looking out the window hoping when she leaves that the car comes back. Don't take anything for granted. And then we started, and one of the things that we did right about 3 months after we started, it was discovered that Ferdinand, the Derby winner, died in a slaughterhouse over in Japan.
Oh my.
And so I started fumbling around trying to talk to the Japanese Racing Association, the Japanese breeders, about repatriating some of these horses. Well, I didn't speak Japanese. I didn't read Japanese, and there were obviously some cultural barriers. And every time I would propose this, they would say yes. And I found out subsequently, when we became really good friends with all the Japanese racing leaders, I asked them about it, and they said, well, when they said yes, it didn't mean that they were agreeing with me. It just meant that they understood what I was saying.
Oh no.
And so that there was a significant problem there. Now, the cool thing about this is they've been to the farm many times. We brought a half a dozen horses home from Japan, including Charismatic, who won the Derby, War Emblem, who won the Derby, Sunshine Forever, who was a masterful turf horse. I mean, we've been very fortunate, and they become superstars over here. And the best part about it, in a way, is that Japanese now are going to open up an Old Friends in Japan.
Wow.
And because they realize we get so many visitors that it's a really good tourist attraction. And so the Japanese Breeders Association and the Japanese Racing Association have combined forces to create an Old Friends in Japan. And that's what they call it, Old Friends in Japan. And they have a logo that's better than ours. And so I'm going to try and steal their logo, pretend that it was our idea all along. No, I just want their logo. It's really nice. And and the idea they're going to have it over there is fabulous. And now we're making arrangements with the South Koreans. The South Koreans buy a lot of our race horses. And now we're starting to talk to them about the possibility about bringing some of them home. So it's really exciting now, because now we're on a lot firmer financial footing, and people, more importantly, people can come here that are owners and trainers and breeders, and they can look at the farm and they can see how the horses are treated. They can look at all their healthcare records, so they know they're going to be well taken care of. I mean, we send horses to Rood and Riddle, which is like, it's like the Mass General, the Cleveland Clinic, the Mayo Clinic of horse racing, of horses. I mean, the people there are spectacular and known all over the world. Anyway, our 20,000, our horses that are 20 years old, that are old claiming horses that are never going to race again or breed again or anything else, they go over there and they get the same treatment as if they're getting them ready for the Kentucky Derby.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm really, that's the thing I'm proudest of. And these horses, we got horses that are, our oldest horse is 31 years old now. And, I'm not that good at math, but I do know that if you're 31 years old, it's really important to have the fastest 2 minutes in sports for, the first Saturday in May when you're 3 years old. But, 28 years later, you have to have their long-term health in mind at all times. One of our original veterinarians, Dr. Doug Byers, who's known worldwide for the way he treats horses, and he was he passed away, but he's really a genius at taking care of horses and diagnosing them and making sure they get the proper care and the proper medicine. And he told me once, he said, it's very simple. He said, if every trainer and every owner and everybody at the racetrack, every jockey, everybody along the line asks themselves one question: is what I'm about to do to this horse in the best interest of the athlete? And if you can answer yes, then go ahead and do it. And if you can't, then don't. So it sounds like an oversimplification, but it's really not. It really gives a great deal of clarity to all of this. And it gets a lot, there's so much confusion going on about the rules and the regulations and what you can do and what you can't do, and whether you can do it at this track or you can't do it at that track, and what's actually performance enhancing and what's not. And it's just very confusing. And I've been in this sport for a long time now, and it's confusing to me. I can imagine what it's like if you're a trainer like Bob Baffert or a trainer like Todd Pletcher, or any of these Hall of Fame trainers that have, well, Bob doesn't maybe have that many, but some of these strings have 300 horses all performing at 7 or 8 or 10 or 15 different tracks on a weekly basis. I mean, how do you keep track of all of that? Very difficult. So we need to be a little bit clearer about what medications are actually good for the horse and what aren't, and just get rid of the ones that aren't. And that's how hard is that? Not hard. It's not that hard if people would just get together and figure it out. It's not hard.
Okay. Wow. Well,
that's my little sermon. I promise that's the end of my sermon.
That's awesome. No, that's interesting. So your organization, to understand it a little bit better now, I mean, these horses are there, these athletes, these famous athlete horses, that's the way, are there, along with other thoroughbreds, correct, for people to come
like
and
the
see?
ones I had.
Okay.
I have a horse here with me that I claimed for $3,500 at Finger Lakes Racetrack on Mother's Day in 1999.
Okay. Wow.
And he's been with me all this time, and everything else. So I figured if I could do it on Social Security and my pension, other people could do it too. It's not that different. And if they knew how much fun it was.
Yes. Yeah.
I wake up every day and see these horses and I go, you got to be kidding me. And whether it's my horse, Summer Attraction, or a Silver Charm, the Hall of Famer, they're really fun to be around, and it makes an old person's life meaningful. They're instead beautiful. Of just, wasting away someplace. If I continued on that route, the drinking and gambling total route, I mean, I would have been done a long time ago, but now I got more important things to do than that. And it's more fun.
So these horses then are there for people to come and see, but can they also kind of adopt or get some of these, or are these horses there for people to come and see, to visit, to look at them?
Here's the thing. When we first started, I adopted a couple of horses out, and they ended up in bad situations.
Okay.
It wasn't the people I adopted them out to. It's when they got done with them, they gave them to somebody else.
Right.
And so they fell into the same stream. Now, I don't know whether they went to slaughter or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. And so right then I said, I'm not constitutionally or psychologically prepared to let these horses go.
Okay.
I'm going to just keep them here.
Okay.
So if there's so many really good groups like, New Vocations and the Acceler Fund and all these other groups that do a really good job of retraining horses and turning them into eventers, because thoroughbreds, most of them are really, really smart and they can learn other things. And they do a great job of that. But we're just retirement because I'm in love with them.
Okay.
And that's the reason. I mean, it's not the answer to the problem of what do you do with these horses once they retire, but it's a partial lesson in the fact that they're very, very popular, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what these horses can do, because nobody's done it. I mean, you had Stacy Clark on from the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance done a great job of bringing all these groups together.
Right.
And if I get a horse that could go on to another career and the owner wants to do that, I can give them the number for New Vocations or one of the other groups, and then they can retrain them. And so the TAA did everything. Instead of competing with other organizations, we're like these horses. The horses are done competing. I'm done competing. I'm not competing with anybody about anything. I don't care anymore. I don't care who wins. I don't care who loses. I just care, does the horse eating his hay, and did he wake up this morning like and eat
Aw,
his breakfast?
aw.
That's
So
basically it.
they
And
really, yeah, it's wonderful for them there.
with
Yeah.
all, yeah, exactly. And with all these people, with everybody cooperating, I think a lot of the people that are active in racing today could take a really good lesson from the TAA and see the way the TAA brought all these different competing groups together to work toward a common goal, which is the betterment of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that hard if people just step out of
Mm-hmm.
their little
Mm-hmm.
cocoons once in a while, and all the
Mm-hmm.
little cubicles where they make little notes and
Yes.
don't do much else,
Yes.
and make regulations that are crazy.
Right.
So,
Right. So how many
sorry,
people?
I said
It's
I
okay.
wasn't going to
No,
preach, and there I
you're
go
fine.
again.
No, it's wonderful. So how many people come through like on a, is it how does this work when people come through to look at the horses,
Sure.
to walk through, or how does this
Yeah, we give them a tour and we explain the horse's career, whether it's a
Okay.
horse like Game On Dude that Bob Baffert had, made $6.5 million on the racetrack, or a Silver Charm who's in the Hall of Fame and won the Derby and the Preakness and went to Dubai and won the Dubai World Cup. Or it's my little horse, Summer Attraction, and his uninspiring career, but he's got an inspiring personality.
Yes.
And you don't know how people are going to relate. They just did a really, really good story. We had a celebration of Silver Charm's 28th birthday, and a woman came and she explained how she was pretty much suicidal. And she came to the farm. She had autism and really bad Asperger's, and her brain was just wired differently than everybody else's that she knew. And she came to the farm and she saw Silver Charm, and Silver Charm gave her a kiss, and she swears that he rewired her brain, and her whole life changed.
Oh.
It was like Prince Charming and Sleeping Beauty or Snow White or whatever it is. It's like this fairy tale. And they did a whole story about it. And so you don't know what value these horses have to people.
Goodness.
I had a guy come here a few years ago, big tough guy, and he's on the tour, and all of a sudden I turn around and we're going through the horse cemetery, and he sees a horse named Taylor Special was buried there. And Taylor Special was the favorite for the Kentucky Derby in 1984. He won the Bluegrass Stakes. He won the Louisiana Derby. He was a really good horse. And this guy dropped to his knees and started to cry. I'm going, oh my God. So I took the tour off to the next horse. And finally, when I came back, I asked him what the deal was. And he said, for 2 years, he said, I worked for Bill Mott, and this horse was not only my best friend. He was my only friend. I spent every waking hour with him. And then 2 months later, we got a box full of pictures and newspaper clippings and saddlecloth. This guy collected all Taylor Special stuff. So our next step is to build a museum here. Bobby Frankel, the Hall of Fame trainer, left us most of his trophies. I mean, we have a lot of great stuff that we want to display. We want to have a giant TV so people can watch the races in their prime and see what they accomplished and get excited about it. And so we're working on that. That's going to be our next project.
Oh, wow. So I understand too now, not only are there old friends, but I understand that there are people that are around the surrounding area that come and see the horses. Is that true, that are friends of the horses too that are there, or not? I didn't know. I thought maybe I caught that in one of the talks that we had.
No, we give our tours all the time. We have 3 tours a day.
Okay.
And then we get bus loads of people.
Okay.
Just to get back to your original question, before COVID, we were close to getting 20,000 visitors a year. And that's we get so much support, both financial and emotional and psychological support from all their fans that come from all over the world to see these great animals. Yes, so it is. I mean, Expedia named us the #1 tourist attraction in Kentucky. So I'm not the only one who's fallen in love with these horses and think that it's really a great thrill to be able to see them every day. People go out of their way, and then we have wonderful guides that give the tours and people that organize them, and we get bus loads of people that come from all over the country. I'm sorry, I call it a bus. It's a luxury motor coach. They don't like being called
There
buses
you go.
anymore.
Okay. You have
If
to have the right name.
if they're in a coach all the way from North Dakota, they want to make sure it's a luxury motor
Wow.
coach and not a bus.
Wow. And you have to have quite a few people to help with all of this, with all of these horses, I'm sure. So it's quite a big
Yes.
team that you have, I'm sure.
Great team.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken us a long time to get the perfect team, but now we have it in at all levels.
Wow.
And the people that work with the horses, our stallion manager, the manager of our horses, people that manage the office, people that manage all these sorts of things. I mean, this place never would have grown if it was dependent on my meager skills at doing that sort of thing. But what I've been able to, I'm like the old baseball managers. They used to sit in the dugout and chew tobacco and get a fat stomach because they didn't really have to do anything. They just had to make sure that the players on the field were terrific, and they could just sit and watch the game. If you put the right team together, you just have to sit there and watch the game. You don't have to do much.
There's quite a talent to that, though.
But well, I can recognize really good people. I can't do that. I can't do that.
It shows for certain. So
And they've been working together, and I'm telling you, when we first started and just had a few horses, my wife and I used to have to climb over the fence and knock the ice off the waters in the winter. And now I just hear it. It's 6:30 in the morning. I hear it. It's a lot easier being inside in bed, hearing it done than actually going out the fence and doing it yourself.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
we understand.
but over the years, we've evolved and changed, and we're getting much more support from both individuals and from racing and from visitors. And we're very fortunate at this point to be where we are, and to be acknowledged by the Japanese that this is a worthwhile project for them to do. Just think how many more horses are going to have better lives now because of that.
Right. Well, I just can't imagine, like I said, these horses that do the great works that they do, and then, where do they go from there? That you've taken them on, and how wonderful it is to know that they have this place that they can go to, and the people that come to see them, because they're magnificent. They really are. I don't think people understand sometimes until they get into it, but once they hear the stories and hear the background of the horses, I'm sure they start to grows deep inside of them. I think people once they get horses in their blood, it's like it never comes out again. It's in your blood and it stays there. But there's something that horses do to people, like that. We all are horse owners here, and just have it in our blood.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I get the same disease.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I just think that if people, my main goal now is to get people to visit, because then I don't have to do anything. As long as you get them here, and as you just smartly pointed out, once you get them here, that's it. The other thing that's kind of like an ancillary but very important element to all this is I've met some great people. You don't get morons usually coming here to see these horses. People come here that want to like the place. They're predisposed to like it because they're kind and they're gentle people, and they think animals should be treated better, and they're racing fans. And so you get a group of people that are really nice. So it's really attracted. It's made all the way through the years. I've just met so many nice people that I never would have met otherwise. So I think that's a really important element. And people have met each other. I mean, we had a woman come on a tour once, and our main farm abuts a subdivision. There was one lot left to sell, and she was here from Detroit with her husband. And she turned around on the tour, looking over the paddock. She goes, "What's that?" She goes, "Is that an empty lot?" I go, "Yeah, I think it's still for sale." She turned around to her husband and says, "We're moving."
Oh, wow.
And 2 years later, they finished building their house, and it's beautiful, and they got flowers, and now they live over there overlooking the farm. And unfortunately for them, I point that out on all my tours. Like, that person over there.
So they're part of it now.
All the flowers on our porch.
There you go.
Her poor husband got dragged here from Detroit.
That's cute.
But anyway, you never know what's going to happen.
Very true. Very good.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll enter our next segment, Canter Banter.
Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com, We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. YourHorseFarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often. This podcast is brought to you by Ram Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. Ram is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
I can tell you how I claimed my horse in 1999. It was on Mother's Day.
Okay.
And I had to claim this horse. And you had to have cash, and I didn't have it. And on Saturday night, I went to one of those check cashing places with a handful of credit cards, threw them under that bulletproof glass, and they go, I can get 300 on this one, 400. I needed $5,000. So I finally get it. And I go home and I go, I got the money. I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get summer attraction. And my wife said, I got a very interesting phone call in the middle of all this. They called me and they said, Madam, are you aware that some very odd activity going on with your credit cards? And she goes, oh no, that's just my husband. But anyway, so the next day I got to call my mother and tell her why I can't come for Mother's Day.
Oh no.
So I call her up and I go, Mom, I said, have you been watching the news? And she goes, yeah, why? I said, well, on Mother's Day, you always go out, can't find a parking place, restaurants are crowded, service is slow, food's cold, you can't talk because everybody's talking, you can't have a conversation. So it's a big mess. Why is that? And she goes, well, because everybody goes out on Mother's Day. I said, that's exactly right. So what's happened is the government's decided they're dividing Mother's Day up into 2. And your last name begins with A, you stay on Sunday. B, which is you go to Monday. And without missing a beat, she goes, does this have something to do with a horse?
She was on to, she knows her son. That's cute. That's so cute.
Yeah,
She knows you so well.
It was pretty funny.
She knew that you were definitely involved in the horses. That's cute.
Aw. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. Where can people purchase tickets to go visit old friends?
Well, they can, we have a website, oldfriendsequine.org. And also they can call the office, which is area code 502-863-1775 and make a reservation. Okay. We have a big party coming up the day after the Derby. We have a big homecoming party. And sometimes the people that actually win the Derby come the next day to our party, some of the owners. And we always get some interesting jockeys and interesting trainers and people associated with these horses to come to that, get together. We have a similar situation up in New York where we're trying to expand. We have a facility up outside Saratoga Springs called Old Friends at Cabin Creek. We have some retirees up there, and we're expanding that facility up there and expanding our presence in Saratoga. So on Whitney weekend, we have a big celebration of the Hall of Fame and I have a really good party at Ann's Washington Inn. And if people want to know about that, they just have to call Ann's Washington Inn in Saratoga Springs.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into the Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like us to discuss? We want to hear from you. You may email us at podcast@ramfence.com or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening.